The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chairman Powell, for being here. It's always good to have you come before the committee. There hasn't been a Federal Reserve chairman since Paul Volcker in the 80s that has dealt with inflation at these levels that we talk about today. And historically, the Fed has been unable to reduce prices without sending our economy into a recession. And to further complicate the situation, the central bank has previously never had to deal with winding down such aggressive asset purchases to go along with increasing interest rates. You are going to have to take action on both of these pressing issues with the backdrop of what we see in Ukraine, between the Russians and the Ukraine, and the general global instability that we have. So needless to say, you have a very tough job ahead of you. So, Chairman, how do you plan on getting inflation under control without completely hampering growth or worse, causing the economy to go into a recession?
So that is exactly our objective. We're going to use our tools. We're going to raise our interest rates, and we're going to shrink our balance sheet over the course of this year. As I mentioned, during this critical phase of global events, we're going to do that with care, and we'll always move with care, but particularly now. And that's how it works. We remove accommodation, and the very high levels of demand that are to some extent a result of our accommodative policy. Those rates will go up. And take housing, for example. The housing market should cool off. It's very, very hot right now, and that should happen broadly in the economy over time. We talk about getting to neutral, which is a neutral rate, which would be somewhere between 2 and 2.5%. It may well be that we need to go higher than that. We just don't know, and we don't know what events will intervene in the meantime. But we haven't faced this challenge in a long time, but we all know the history, and we all know what we need to do. I also do think, and I think it's more likely than not, that we can achieve what we call a soft landing, and they're far more common in our history than is generally understood, and that would be what you described, which is get inflation back under control without a recession.
Yeah. Well, some of us in this room remember the 80s.
Sorry? Yeah.
Some of us in this room remember the 80s and what it was like. We know that there is a lag period between the Federal Reserve's actions, and the inflammatory implications being felt in the economy. The San Francisco Fed, which we've mentioned today, admits that this latency period could last anywhere from 3 months to 3 years, and for families and business owners like myself, 3 years would be an extremely long time to deal with prices in these elevated levels. So, Mr. Chairman, when the Fed eventually decides to raise interest rates, what tools will you have at your disposal to ensure your actions are felt with as little a delay as possible, so we can once again have price stability like we've talked about?
In this world that we live in now, when we make a decision about interest rates, or frankly even talk about a decision to raise interest rates, markets pick it up like that. Financial conditions have already tightened. We haven't actually lifted off from zero, but as of a week ago, the market was pricing in, literally already reflected in financial conditions to some extent, 6 or 7 rate increases. Now, it's less than that now, and we haven't made decisions to do that yet, but our decisions get into financial conditions very quickly. It does take time, of course, for that to affect economic activity, and that's where you get 3 months to longer than that. I think by the end of a year, much of the effect is generally thought to be in. So, but that time period has already started because monetary policy really works through expectations, and we're now expecting rate increases, and they've already happened in effect, and we have to ratify them, of course.
Yeah, we're seeing them. Finally, in the past year, you have referenced productivity gains as being key to increase the living standards for American workers over time. Unfortunately, we've seen the Biden administration implement many new time-consuming regulations that are forcing businesses, again, like mine and others, away from productive activities. The American Action Forum conducted a study that estimated that new regulations from the Biden's first year in office will culminate in over 131 million new paperwork hours. So quickly, Mr. Chairman, can you discuss the correlation between a company's regulatory burden and the effect on productivity?
So it's been, I'm a little bit familiar with the research, and it's actually been, it's been difficult to make those connections in research. But we know as a practical matter, you know, we all want just the right amount of regulation, not too much, and to the extent you're spending resources unnecessarily, that'll hold you back.
Thank you very much, and I yield my time back, Madam